Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
And welcome back, everyone, to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute, a podcast where we are breaking down and celebrating the films of Gene Wilder 1 minute at a time. And we are looking at the film Young Frankenstein for our Season 1 opener. I'm Alan Sanders. I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm Walt Murray, your co-host, who has made a lot of people angry for not liking Cano Reeves.
Cano Reeves.
Cannoli. Talent Reeves.
No Talent Reeves. And as you heard from that voice that came from, the streets of Transylvania, we actually have Paul Sullivan joining us once again over here in Romania. How do you like the atmosphere over here, Paul? It's a little bit different than South Florida.
Yeah, it's a little different from South Florida. It's a lot different from Geneva. So, I mean, it's a strange place to be for a Frankenstein film. But, hey, I can adjust.
But a great place for a monster picture, because let's face it, we now know all the monsters apparently do come from Transylvania.
Evidently.
Well, when we start minute 39 here, we are still in the midst of the streets after the unfortunate tumbling of the corpse in the coffin, and as they are trying to hide what has happened, a constable has stumbled across their path and continues their conversation with Dr. Frankenstein. The constable saying, "Oh, yes, I was told you were here," and will end with, unfortunately, a foot shot in the bowels of the castle von Frankenstein, and eventually hearing the good doctor saying, "What a profound and reverent night is this." So let's get back to this visual comedy for the moment, because we are continuing to play this out. And if you missed us last minute, you should probably go back and re-listen or re-watch. I guess you can't really re-watch, but re-listen to minute 38, because right now the corpse is from the coffin is sticking its arm out from underneath young Dr. Frankenstein as though it is his right hand, and Gene Wilder has his left hand fully exposed and is trying his best to make it look natural with the constable. So Walt, when we first start this minute, the constable is being reminded, "Oh yes, I was told you were here." So once kind of giving us a foreshadow into what's coming later, everyone knows there's a new Frankenstein in town.
That's right. The word is out. And the last Frankenstein, things went a little awry. So I'm surprised he's that excited about it.
Well, it's awful quiet on the Sully side.
No, I mean, I'm just agreeing with it. I mean, there's one cutaway that's right at the beginning of this sequence here, which is showing that Igor is kind of on his knees and sort of, adjusting himself right there, like adjusting himself behind the arm sticking out of the coffin. And that's a great quick cut, because what that does is it takes away any questions of the rest of the scene. How did that move? What's it going to do? How's it happening there? Just throwing that in there allows us to enjoy the comedy of this scene, as opposed to, "But wait a minute," being one of those assholes who goes, "But wait a minute, that's not how his thing happened." That takes away just that quick shot, which is, quick cutaway of Marty Feldman, just that, okay, he's down there, and with him down there, that allows him to stamp, it allows him to, move the hand in for the scene with, you're chilled to the bone. All the different stuff, including the saluting, you allow the scene to play out. Again, like the scene in the graveyard, there's very few cuts in this. It's the timing of Gene Wilder. In fact, for the minute you see Igor getting to his knees behind the arm there is no cuts until the constable leaves. That's all one sustained take. And so what that does is it allows you to rely on the quality timing and the comic timing of Gene Wilder in that scene, as opposed to cutting back and forth. That one edit allows you to just play it out and have fun with it.
And that's something we didn't mention in the last minute that dovetails into what you're saying. When the constable shows up, you see for just a split second Marty Feldman, or Igor's head from the other side of the casket, ducked down. So he's obviously now crawled underneath the casket or underneath the cart, and he's right there at the feet, or certainly behind, young Dr. Frankenstein, or Dr. Frankenstein, who's talking to the constable. So you're right, Paul. It sets up the premise that we now know where Igor is within the context of this basically a two-person scene.
Well, I also found it funny, too, because it had that sense to me. Y'all probably never had this issue, but when I was up to something in my younger days, and it's like, up the cops, and duck down and get out of the way. But you also have the ubiquitous face of Marty Feldman. It's like he's everywhere all the time. He's always showing up. You never know when he's going to pop in.
Well, the thing I like about the continuation of the scene is all of a sudden, the tension for us, the audience, because again, we're in on the gag. You know, the constable doesn't know what's going on. We are both in on the gag laughing, but we also have a sense of heightening tension because now the constable extends his hand to shake hands. And unfortunately, it just happens to be the right hand that's sticking out that is not the good doctor's. Had it been the reverse, well, Gene Wilder could have just shaken his hand.
Sure.
But no, it's the corpse's hand that's sticking out. So now there's that momentary pause. Gene Wilder, without blinking, he's almost like, he wants to shake hands, does he? And all he can think to do is stomp his feet. Thankfully, Igor's brilliant, apparently, in this moment. He goes, oh, right, move the hand. Because it does. He moves the hand just in time to be able to make it look as though Gene Wilder is extending his right arm back to the constable.
Yeah, it's like a puppet master.
And it's like that improv game you talked about the other day. It's like, how are we going to play this out? How many silly things can we add to this? The shaking the hands, the clasping your hands together, the salute. It's like they had a checklist of all the things. Him picking his thumb in the previous minute. What are the different things that we could do in one scene and throw in a couple of hand puns along the way to just have some fun with this? And this particular one works. As I said in the previous minute, there was an hour of deleted scenes, so there probably was a ton of gags like this scene with the hand sticking out of the coffin that didn't work, and this one just happened to work. And I think part of it must be because of the performance by Gene Wilder and how sincere it looks and feels. And that this is just a goofy scene that doesn't advance any quote plot unquote. It doesn't really build character, I think, but it's just there. And it's funny. You get the laughs, and then you get the hell out. Like just right around the time the scene starts, okay, I think we're done. It knows, like, okay, we're done. You know, it's like there's even in this minute there's enough to cut away to another scene and have that scene play out. Just because we'll just keep moving. We have the hand gag, work great, push it out, next scene.
Yeah, and it's funny without being over the top absurd.
Let me ask you this question. We've got a constable here. We've already mentioned yesterday that he's got a Cockney-ish accent. Certainly not as sophisticated, but it's definitely an English style, an English dialect. Why is he wearing like one of those World War I helmets? It looks, what do you call it? The Pickelhaube? Why is he wearing a German World War I helmet?
Mel Brooks is obsessed with everything Germanic and military. It's in all the film. He can't have him show up in full Nazi helmet, but he can have him show up in full Kaiser Wilhelm helmet.
I mean, I just noticed it in this minute. I don't know if we noticed it in the last minute. I'd have to go back and watch. But until he sort of shakes his head, I thought it was just your typical British kind of bobby hat. But he's got a freaking spike on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a World War I German helmet. That's it. And that's why if he had a full Nazi helmet, that would be weird. Why does he have a Nazi helmet on? Oh, but he has that thing on. So it sort of subconsciously puts us in a place in Europe that isn't England with an English accent. Now, the constable is played by an actor named Dale Johnson, who we lost about 10 years ago. Where do you think Dale Johnson was born?
I have no idea, honestly.
Portland, Oregon.
Well, he's doing a great accent here.
He is.
He's affecting it. That's a fake accent. So that's a choice. That isn't like, oh, we hired a guy who was from, a classically trained British accent. No, they got a dude who made his career as a sort of a lifelong that guy on television shows like Perry Mason or Adam 12 or something like that.
Well, yeah, he played 3 different characters on Adam 12 and 3 different characters on Marcus Welby, MD. And then he was also in Perry Mason, an episode of Lassie, and he was in The Towering Inferno. And I did not recognize his face when I watched this minute.
Well, he's got a big fake beard on and a British accent.
Yeah.
Well, he owns it. I mean, he's got the stature of a cop. He acts like one of these, he's got his head back, his belly thrust out. He's like that typical cop on the beat working he's at the end of his career. He's enjoying his, the back half of being a cop, and he sells it. I mean, everything about it, he is in the mode of this character, and I would have never guessed that this was an accent he was playing. I thought they found somebody from England because it's so natural.
Yeah, maybe he's a pro.
Well, hey, I guess that's why actors get paid the big bucks.
Yeah. Pretend.
Well, I just pulled this up for folks who, if you're part of a, weekly trivia team trying to win some, bar bucks at your local hangout. The pickle hob, or otherwise known as the pickle helm, was originally designed in 1842 by King Frederick William IV of Prussia, perhaps as a copy of similar helmets that were adopted at the same time by the Russian military. Now, it's not clear whether this was a case of imitation, parallel invention, or both, but they were based on earlier Napoleonic cuirassier, the type of hat used by the French army that Napoleon used. So, just kind of a bit of history of this spiked helmet that we see the constable wearing.
Yeah, and it's definitely a European...
Well, Eastern
European helmet, and it really continues to set that mythical Eastern European monster movie tone.
Now, as we move along in the minute, the next thing we see is after he comments about how cold his hand is, because let's face it, it's a corpse hand.
Yeah.
I love Gene Wilder trying to warm his fingers up.
Yeah, playing right along with him and trying to be as convincing as he can be.
Now, here's something anecdotal I'll tell you about what happened to me. When I was a kid, I grew up in Detroit, and when I was about 12, 13, I was too cool at that point, because let's face it, once you hit your teenage years, you're too cool to dress appropriately for winter weather, and I had to go out and shovel some snow, and I didn't want to wear my gloves. And apparently, what happened is I contracted a mild case of frostbite. So what'll happen when my fingers, sometimes will do this if it gets just a little bit cold, and if I haven't had enough to eat recently, like if my blood sugar starts to drop, my fingers, all the blood will drain out of them, and they'll turn yellow, and they take forever to warm back up. And I do that exact same thing where I'm trying to squeeze and pinch my fingers to try to get blood to go back up to the ends of them. That
is really weird.
It is. In fact,
that's bizarre. I'm not going to lie to you.
No, in fact, when I just I rarely get sick, but this past winter I came down with pneumonia. And I went to the doctor, and they did this thing where they put a little sensor on your finger to say how much oxygen, because pneumonia is basically an infection in your lungs that you can die from. I mean, it can be serious. People do die from it all the time. And so he put the little thing on my finger, but my fingers, because I was nervous and I was cold, the blood had all drained out of my hand. And he put the thing on me. He goes, "We've got to take you to the hospital. You're not getting any oxygen." I said, no, it's just my hands are cold. He goes, no, you're not getting oxygen. I'm like, well, oh, please, let me warm my hands up under the faucet for about 5-6 minutes. And so we ran some warm water, and I had to get my hands up to temperature, and you could start seeing little pools of pink start showing up in my fingers. But my hands, when they get cold, thanks to being a dumbass, when my hands get cold, the blood actually drains out, and they look yellow. They look like dead fingers, and it's the weirdest thing.
You may be the only person in America who has that.
No, it's actually a true phenomenon. People get it, especially if you've had any kind of capillary damage from either cold or cold exposure. And there's also other things you could have that do that. But for me, I can very much identify with this trying to squeeze the fingers and try to, massage them vigorously to try to get the blood back into the tips.
You're probably going to be more successful than the doctor is.
Well, yeah. Well, I hope my hand's not really dead. So, Sully, you've never had to deal with like shoveling snow and stuff and having your fingers go numb from the cold?
You kidding me? I grew up in New England. I would shovel snow all the time. I wore gloves.
Apparently, you were smarter than me.
I was going to say, I grew up in the Midwest.
I got mittens. I didn't say, I just finished my bath. Let's run out to the blizzard. No, I put on clothes.
Yeah, well, teenagers and right at that cusp of teenage years when you think you're too cool for words, yeah, I tell my kids all the time. Now, granted, they make all new mistakes, but I told them, I said, don't ever do that because that's permanent damage. That will never, those capillaries that die, that froze, they never come back.
Yeah, I've never damaged, I've done a lot of damage to my body over the years, but never anything like that to my fingers.
See, now I've got a whole new mission. I'm trying to do that to my liver, so...
I've had kidney stones. I've had about 7 or 8 kidney stones in my life, and while that was happening, I kept thinking, I wish my fingers were hurting right now. Better than this.
Well, let's continue with this minute. We are continuing with the constable, and there's this nice little moment where they've added one last visual gag, because he managed to get away with the hand just sticking out, picking the stuff, picking his thumb, then having to do the handshake, and playing off that, oh, well, this must be a cold, airy night. Go get a nip of the bottle, warm yourself up. There's got to be one last gag here, and that is the nod, the salute, goodbye. And once again, we've got the double stomp to Igor to help raise the hand up, and it doesn't come up quite far enough, so you've got Dr. Frankenstein having to do this weird kind of lean my head down and reach my hand halfway to try to make it to sell the salute.
But somehow it's convincing.
What he also does to sell the salute is he uses his real hand. He kind of points at his head as if to say, you see what I'm doing? You see what I'm doing? I'm saluting you. Is this enough?
Yeah. He does. He puts his finger up and goes, night, night, sir. Thank you for stopping by. Nothing to see here. I feel like Officer Barbrady, where everything's blowing up behind him. He's like, move along. Nothing to see here. Just a couple of guys and a corpse.
The constable has no peripheral vision because the second he's off screen, they push the hand back in and they wheel it off.
I was going to mention that. It's like they don't even wait for him to take 2 steps away, and they're already pushing the corpse's hands back into the coffin and covering it up with the tarp, and they move along. But you know what? Throughout this whole scene, we buy it. I have no problem with them hightailing it out of there.
Yeah, that's the least of the. If we're talking about realism in this, and we're talking about that, I mean, that's kind of we're just enjoy it at this point. Though.
Yeah, and the constable seems a little oblivious.
Yeah, at this point, if the constable hasn't caught on that there was a corpse hand dangling in front of him, then at this point, there's not a whole lot to worry about. Now we do a slow dissolve and come into a pair of giant naked feet in the very. You can't get any. In fact, I'm holding my nose at this point because Walt, I have a thing against exposed feet. I've gotten a little bit better with exposed female feet. Maybe that's very chauvinist of me, but I am a firm believer. Dudes past a certain age, those toes do not need to be flown about in public. Put them behind socks and a pair of shoes. I am not the flip-flop guy, and it drives me nuts when I go to the store and I see people with their bare toes sticking out, especially because I imagine them, the yellowing of the nails and the dark stuff stuck in the corner of the toenail, and just, I don't like feet.
That's why I got no problem with Crocs. Cover those suckers up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so we're all in agreement.
I don't really care, but if it's an issue that you have, I don't look at. There was a guy at a coffee shop in Los Angeles that I used to go to. It was a place when I was in between work, and there was a place I could get a lot of writing done. And this guy was about maybe 10, 15 years older than me, big old beard, and he wore sandals every day. And the calluses on his feet were so intense that his feet looked like cantaloupes. It just was like weird. It was like if I shot at his foot, I don't think he would have felt anything. And I kept looking at this dude's feet thinking, shoes. Just shoes.
Just shoes.
At some point, because I'm trying to have a cup of coffee and maybe a scone, and your feet looks like a scone. So maybe, at some point you cover it up. When you have something like that, you cover it up. But I think most feet are just feet. They're feet.
Oh, and I think what it stems from is I used to, a long time ago, I was with IBM and I did a lot of business traveling. And, it used to be, there was a time in our country where flying, it was sort of a privilege. You said, you know what, it costs a lot. And so you don't treat it like it's your living room. You're in a plane and you're going to sort of, then it became cheaper and then it became cheaper. And then you had these discount airlines. I was flying back on a Friday, 5-6 o'clock in the afternoon from a week-long business trip. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there and I'm getting this weird funk coming up. And I'm like, what is that? Did somebody, take a dump in my seat? Did I have a kid sitting here? What was going on? And then all of a sudden, something out of the corner of my eye, I see a wiggle. The dude sitting behind me decided before we even taxied away from the frickin' gangway, had taken his socks and shoes off and put his foot one up against the wall of the plane, and his toes were just underneath my armrest. And I had to deal with that for an hour and a half flight. And ever since then, I have been so grossed out by toes. When I see a toe, that's what I imagine. And so I can't stand them.
You have some sort of weird PTSD.
I do. I have a PTSD against bare feet because all I can think of, first of all, what idiot does that? Who goes traveling? Now, I get if you're John McClane and you've landed and the guy tells you when you get back, take off your socks and shoes, make fists with your toes, but you're not on the plane. You know? Come on, there's people around you.
Well, there are just some people who don't know the difference between their living room and public. And we should be protected from those people.
Yeah, pretty much.
And
the Die Hard reference is a great reference, of course. But I mean, I'll give this guy a break because this guy's dead.
Well, he doesn't have a choice. No, I get that. To start this scene, it just sort of made me, this is the most like, ugh, moment so far of the movie. And we've seen actual dead human skulls.
Yeah.
But that's the part that bothers me. That's, I guess, goes to show.
Those are some gigantic feet.
Oh, they are. Well, he's a pretty big schwanzstückel.
Yeah, well, as she pointed out, it's proportionate.
Well, as we start to close out this minute, I don't want to rush to the end because if there's something else we're missing, but I do find it interesting that we now move to, again, that back and forth of funny, serious. Mm-hmm. He's looking underneath the sheet, examining this fine specimen. We realized from earlier minutes that to make this experiment work, we need an oversized body. We need something much bigger to handle the experiment. And he seems very pleased with the specimen that they've procured.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it fits. It fits the drawing that was dangling in the fireplace after that Igor drew.
As we begin to close out minute 39 here, and the doctor and Igor are showing some, I don't know, almost reverence, and I guess that's the right word, considering what he closes with a saying, "Oh, what an awesome sight! What a profound and reverent night is this." He's very happy with the specimen. I think he feels like my plan can now go forward.
Yeah, and you do get the sense that even though he has fought the Frankenstein lineage, even though he has tried to reject that earlier on, he's fully immersed in what he's doing here, and he's viewing it almost as a religious experience or something that he, in his mind, this is a very meaningful and important and reverent moment for him. He's
playing God. I mean, that's part of what makes. That's part of the original book. That's part of what makes the James Whale film. He's having this moment where he is infused with this great sense of power that he has the power to give life. And so this is the very theme of all the versions of Frankenstein that have existed over the years. And the fact that they will play off of that mythology, they'll play off of those themes in these scenes without being goofy about it. And Gene Wilder giving a beautiful performance, what could be a beautiful dramatic performance in any other film, is one of the things that makes it work. And kind of mirrors the, no escaping, that's for me, destiny scene from earlier in the film, is show that he is making the transformation from being ashamed of being a Frankenstein to being a Frankenstein. And this is part of the transformation for him.
Looking at this minute, Walt, and realizing how far he's come in a very short period of time in terms of the film, I was thinking back to when he found his grandfather's book and was reading it until all hours of the night. And he looks up and he's got the bags under his eyes. He's got the wild hair. He's got the stare, and he screams, "It could work." I think at that point he snapped. He's decided, I'm going to go steal a body. I'm going to try to bring a body back from the dead. There's no second guessing. There's no moment in the film where he's going to, labor over, do I or don't I? Do I? Overnight.
He's all in.
He's all in.
He's all in at that point. And this, I think, is an example of that. He's not fighting it. There's no sense at all that he is not Dr. Frankenstein. And in fact, I'm surprised that he didn't introduce himself to the constable as Dr. Frankenstein, because he has really bought and sold himself as that at this point.
Yeah, he's not quite there yet, but he's certainly heading that direction.
He's close.
I mean, we're all agreeing. He's definitely, we see it. He may not.
I don't think there's any resistance
He may not admit it
anymore.
No. Well, Sully, let me ask you before we close out this minute, do you find it in terms of the story construction jarring at all? Because we spend the first 25, almost 27 minutes with him saying, no, 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 I'm not this. Then he finds his grandfather's book and suddenly in one night, let's reenact the experiment because it could work.
I'm confused by the question.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'll rephrase.
Yeah.
Do you find it at all jarring in terms of the film that we spent so much time with him saying, I'm not going to do this, I don't believe in this, my grandfather's work was doo-doo?
No. Because he's been now immersed in the world. I mean, that's kind of what has happened. That since he's gone there, and he has been denying who he is for the first chunk of the film. And the minute he's brought into the world, he's inherited the castle and everything like that. The minute he's brought into that, it starts to come over him. And I think that I think it works, and also, this ain't a miniseries, it's a comedy. So we're not going to have, if this were a dramatic picture, it probably would take a little more time. But no, I think I don't think it works against it at all. I think this is an example that we as the audience are fine with this because of the brilliant performance by Gene Wilder in it, that we see there's a transformation and that it works thematically and comedically.
Yeah, and I think that as we've walked this walk with him from being the professor at a med school who is really pushing away the Frankenstein lineage to now, he has really made that full transition.
All right, well, as we begin to close this out, we almost sound Shakespearean. He is so excited about this, and there's passages throughout the film that are much, the language is much higher written, and I love it for that reason. But as we close out minute number 39, Paul, do you have anything we missed in this series of events?
No, again, I think we've covered it. It's a great comedically visual scene that the lack of editing had made really, really work. Again, just the whole film is peppered with moments like this that you almost forget about because there's so many things like this. When you gave me these minutes, like, oh yeah, the scene with the hand sticking out. That's right. And that's a sign of a great comedy when it's that dense.
And Walt, we say this all the time, but we continue to see the pendulum swing back and forth between it's heading toward the horror picture, it's heading back to the comedy, it's heading back to the horror picture, back to the comedy, and we end this minute, we're back to heading toward that horror/monster movie motif.
Yeah, and again, keeping us on our toes, not knowing what to expect next. And I'm looking forward to the next minute, which we don't know which way the pendulum's about to swing.
All right, well, Paul, we've had you all week long except for Friday. You want to come back in here and close it out so we can all go get cocktails and start the weekend off right?
Well, like a good closer, I think I could go 9. I think the bullpen can take a rest. I think I can finish the week off. We don't need to bring anyone else in. Yeah, you know what? Let's go do it. Why not?
All right. Well, we are so happy to have you with us, not only for this week, but get you for one more day. Paul, if somebody wants to get some of that baseball conversation in, and like you said, not necessarily stat heavy, but certainly the everyman conversation, the kind of bar talk we have when we're watching our favorite teams on TV, where can they find you?
Just follow me at Sully Baseball, and all the links will be there. Follow me at Sully Baseball on Twitter, on Facebook, SoundCloud, on Instagram at Sully Baseball Podcast, and you can subscribe on iTunes or Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and Podbean.
And Walt, even though I know what it means when people tell me where to go, it means something different for our listeners. Where can they go to learn more about us?
Yes, it definitely means something different to our listeners. The best place to find us is www.thewilderride.com. You'll find all of our different locations around the internet where you can listen to our show. Facebook, you can go to www.facebook.com/thewilderride to get more involved. If you got any comments, questions, something we missed in this minute, which is definitely a possibility, please let us know there, and we look forward to having you back tomorrow.
All right, so definitely come back tomorrow as we will close out the week with minute number 40, and we'll start off minute number 40 with Dr. Frankenstein admiring his specimen, and we will go straight through to a hand slipping through a drop box of sorts to open a door at a rather interesting business in the streets of Transylvania. All of that and more coming your way tomorrow on The Wilder Ride, where we are getting wilder by the minute.
Frankenstein.
Now, me, I'm from Portland, Oregon.
It's a bit of